And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to School Zone, the All Education Podcast. Today, our very special guest today is Todd Gragg, the Director of Finance and Business Education with the State Department of Education. Luckily for you guys today, I did bring my checkbook, so we'll run through that after we get through all of the business part of it.
That shouldn't take long.
Reconcile any sort of diligent stuff that we have to do. But Todd, welcome. Will you tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from? How'd you get to be the director of a state agency?
Sure. Director of one part of a state agency.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. I will leave
Minor
the director part to
minor detail. Don't worry about
Hoffmeister, but yes. I've been in my current role since July, joined the State Department of Ed then. Previous to that, I spent a few years teaching at Midwest City High School, taught financial literacy for a semester. It was kind of, my first semester was an interesting time. I was coming to education from alternative certification and thought I was taking a job with Oklahoma City Public Schools to teach Algebra 1 to non-English speakers. And before all of that process could get completed, before that process could all get completed, there was a job opening at the school where my wife was teaching, and I wanted to be there instead, and I took it. And I remember sitting in my new boss's office, and she was telling me what I would be teaching, which was financial literacy, health, and care and prevention of athletic injuries.
Okay.
And I looked at her and I said, I really don't know anything about two of those. And she was like, it's okay. You can figure it out as we go through the semester.
It was an online course.
I started halfway through the year. I started second semester. Coach was retiring. And they were moving our girls basketball coach to the gym to take over the PE courses, and I was taking the girls basketball coach's course load. And the girls won state a few months later, and I always felt like I had a hand in that because I let
your girls won state.
Our girls basketball team, right after
the team that you took over.
Well, no, I didn't take over for them.
Todd, you got to tell that better story, dog. You gotta tell
let's go ahead. Let's re-edit that. Let's rewind. Let's strike that again.
Coach Todd Bragg here with the
state championship coach.
But I did let the state championship coach devote all of her time in the gym. So I was like, I should get a ring for this or something, you know. But no, I taught financial literacy there for a semester and then moved into teaching U.S. history, AP World History, AP US, economics, and just kind of some really fun stuff. And then had an opportunity to join the State Department last summer, and was a right fit, good time to leave. It was difficult leaving my students, but was also a good time career-wise for the move. So,
So how many years in total were you in that classroom?
I was in the classroom 3.5 years.
Nice.
So
that's a good stat.
Yeah.
That's a good stat. And so now what do you do over at the state now?
Title is Director of Financial and Business Education.
Okay.
What that means, I think, is still a work in progress. It's a brand new role. The State Department added this last year. And it's kind of unique in the country too. State of Colorado has a personal financial literacy specialist. It kind of does a little of the same things. And then I believe it's Connecticut has a business education director in their State Department of Ed, but I am the only person in the United States with my title.
Nice.
And so still trying to figure out what all that means. Right now, one of the biggest things I'm working on is professional development opportunities for teachers in financial ed.
Okay.
Still trying to get in and understand the needs for business ed side of it. I'm trying to work closely with Career Tech out of Stillwater, and really they've been the experts in that field for a number of years, so really just trying to come alongside them and support them where I can right now as we look for kind of what the future of business needs are for students in our state.
Fantastic.
Todd, I want to dive right in. As a former stock market class champion, do they still have that game?
They do still have that game.
Okay.
Were you?
I was wondering if my title still just kept carrying on.
It's not as good as Todd's, man. Todd's is state champion basketball coach, and now he's the only person in the nation with the director.
So I had to come in with, I have won that game at a local school before.
Did your students win it, or did you win the teacher division?
Todd, let's go into the program that we have here.
Because I played the teacher division with my AP economics students last year, and I can tell people how to invest a lot better than I can pick stocks for myself. So, but I will say the game, and they want students picking individual stocks and different things. I would never invest that way personally. I kind of stick to index.
You would not.
Indexes.
You're just
I
going on
stick
record.
to
You're
index.
not going to trust your money and your finances.
to my own
To your
judgment.
own-
Like, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I'm
Video
not-
game.
I'm gonna
Okay,
stick
okay.
with index funds and
Probably
mutual
definitely see a
funds.
financial advisor
Yeah,
before making any
before making
investments.
that,
Yeah, we'll run that in the show notes.
Yeah, so yeah.
Disclaimer on the
Disclaimer: yes, I do not give financial advice or tax advice. So, yeah,
See a financial professional. Not
You
the
need
director
anything
of
done in
finance.
hindsight, we'll help you.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is this game?
Stock market game.
You've never.
It's a
Well,
game. It's a national game, and I forget all of the players that kind of back it on the national level. Locally, the Oklahoma Council on Economic Education runs it for the state of Oklahoma, and teachers can sign up for it. It's free cost for schools. There are webinars where you can learn more about it, and it can really go, I think, middle school through high school.
to go back and get
Yeah,
on.
yeah, I'm about to go back in.
There is,
Well,
I'm
afternoon has just been calendared out.
I'm pretty sure you guys could join the next year the teachers division and compete there.
Well, yeah,
We
why
should
not?
have an office contest.
Yeah, absolutely. Got a bunch of people in here that think they know a lot. So
Students sign up, then they compete in teams, or I think there's still an individual division. My students did the team side, and they pick stocks weekly. Is it $10,000? I think they get initially, or maybe it's $100, or there's a fictional amount of money they get to invest in the stocks, but the stocks are as they're happening.
Yeah, they're live.
And so
Yeah.
we did it. My students did it just about a year ago. We were going through it, and if you remember, the stock market was pretty volatile, downward trend last winter and spring. So it was not a great time to be checking stocks every day. I would show it was basically a
very discouraging.
just a snapshot of the S&P 500 on a daily basis. We would look at that during our bell work time, and it would show like gains and losses each day for all 500 of those companies. And there was a several week period where it was just dark red. It seemed like daily. And it was like, that's
So
kind of
you
depressing.
think you created a class that now invests their money under the mattress or in a can in the backyard like the stock
Call
market?
my mama, dump that 401k, baby.
Yeah, well, I tried to hopefully get my students to understand that, guys, you're 17, 16 years old. You're at an age where if at 18 you start investing, you can ride that out.
Oh, yeah.
You can ride anything out. And we played some games, too. There's some interactives, kind of innovative ones online where you can find where you actually try and beat the stock market over a period of 30 years. And the simulation picks an actual 30-year period. And you just don't know where it's going to be. You could be in the 1920s to 50s. Sure. You could be 80s to now. And you have to buy. You can buy once and sell once. And it's almost impossible to beat the average of the S&P 500 on it. And so, but actually showed them on that, like if you let it go long enough and are making sound decisions, you should be okay.
You're gonna be all right.
But you can't, when you get those trigger fingers, and like my stock fell 2%, I've got to sell. And I don't know if either of you guys remember, Seinfeld had a really cool episode about that back in the day. George and Jerry had invested in a stock that George had a hot tip on, and it's tanking. Kramer's making fun of Seinfeld, saying you should have sold, you shouldn't have put in. And Jerry takes his girl he's dating then to a cabin upstate. I don't know if they're upstate New York or into Vermont or somewhere, but it's just pouring down rain. And right before he goes, he tells Jerry the guy that got him the tip is in the hospital, and they can't get in touch with him. He's like, sell all of it. And Jerry sells out his stock, and George doesn't. And then it rebounds over the weekend, and George makes a ton of money off of it, and Jerry lost everything. So it's kind of like one of those things when you can't ride daily averages, or especially in today's media. Yeah. I still tell people if they want to, and again, I don't ever give financial advice, but I feel like a safe company to invest in long term right now is still Tesla. Partly they own the best way for individual solar panels for houses. So once those really start to catch on that people convert more to solar energy at a home level, they have that technology ready to go for solar roof panels at the individual consumer market. And so I think once those start to hit, Tesla's going to blow up more than they ever have with the cars. But that's a industry still, or a specific company that daily in and out, they ride waves based on what their owner, CEO, posts on Twitter. Right. And so if he posts something on Twitter, they'd tank $1 billion the next day. they have a successful market launch, they double back up the next. So you can't look at those daily trends on that ever. So,
So like with your role now, like with the state, does that have you going out and talking to individual classes, districts, school sites? Like, are you just responsible for like the financial literacy component that's required for the kids, or?
I'm responsible for financial literacy and for helping support business teachers.
Okay.
I do go out to classes every once in a while. I'm going out next, I believe a week from today, we'll be at a school in the Tulsa area. Really interesting time I had in the classroom back in early December. I went to the Tulsa Boys Home and spoke to students there, and hopefully was able to give them some tips and ideas about what their life could look like and how finances can really help them overcome hardships or limitations and handling their finances right. I spend a lot of time connecting with teachers. Right now in the midst of creating some new professional development opportunities, and next year we'll be rolling a lot of those out, and hopefully we'll be visiting with even more teachers more routinely. Did 4 regional events in the fall for teacher training. We got 2 trainings that I'm helping host in a month from now, into the week after spring break. Sign up, any teachers that are listening, sign-ups are still available. There's a one-day training in McAllister on March 24th and one-day training in Oklahoma City on March 25th. That they can just email me, look in the show notes and email me if they want more information about those.
And those are for the business teachers?
For financial ed.
Okay,
financial literacy. And so I do a little bit of both. I connect with partners and try and help them understand what they're doing in the field as well. Mm-hmm. So because it is financial literacy in Oklahoma has existed for almost a decade and a half now, since 2007.
Does it have standards?
It does have standards. 2007, the initial piece of legislation was passed. Standards were written at that time. They have gone through one update, never really a full revision and review that might happen in the next 5-year period. But when that happened in 2007, Oklahoma was one of the first handful of states to really get invested in this type of education. The rest of the country has caught up and surpassed in some areas. There are still some things Oklahoma does unique. We were the first state to really look at gambling as a standard for students.
Like teaching them how, like the odds and things like that, card counting.
Well, dice, baby.
I mean, to go back to the stock market game, that's gambling, right? Now, I think it would have been fun to combine some of those things. I don't think you can really do that. Should do that for students, but with some of the advanced statistics.
Well, we were offering some services that we have here.
Yeah.
That,
but you could look at like AP
situation.
stats and combining that, like what the percentages and odds are, and really get into game theory into what that could be. But gambling's an interesting one in Oklahoma because a lot of the national curriculum and lesson plans that are developed around gambling are all from a negative viewpoint. Mm-hmm. And I don't think you can ever take that standpoint in Oklahoma because there are schools where literally 75% of the students, their families work for casinos. Right. And so that is the major economic driver throughout the state. And so it's not a all a negative impact. And so I think you have to teach responsibility there. And I know like when I lived in Dallas for a while, there were a group of guys that we would play poker like once every couple of months. Sure. And what's funny is we'd actually meet in our church basement to do it. Nice. But we would all throw in like $20, order pizza and wings, and whoever won got what was left over after we bought food. So it was more like a type of entertainment for us. And I think you can teach that responsibly to students in that it's not just negative. But Oklahoma definitely was one of the leaders there. We were one of the first to really look at charitable giving, first to look at insurance.
Like charitable giving as in like a tax write-off? Or just
that it just should be a typical part of your budget.
Okay.
That there is a benefit to society for people being charitable, and that you need to be responsible in how you look at charities. I think Oklahoma is still one of the few, if not the only state that within our charitable giving part, that one of the substandards mentions how to review and look up information on charities and whether where their money's going, whether it's all going to overhead or it's actually going to what they say. And so I'm trying to think whether we had a online theft and identity theft component that was very new nationwide when we brought it in. So Oklahoma really kind of started to set the trend, and a lot of things And then it really has been left up to the work of all of the partners in the field to really make that happen. So I spend some time helping them, learning what they're doing, learning how we can support them better as well. So
Nice.
So what are some things that your office does with like real world connections and careers for students?
a lot of that is happening more through our the people working on our ICAP initiative, the individual career academic plan. But it has a tie-in with financial literacy because the first standard for financial literacy is all about careers, because to really understand how to handle your money, you've got to know how to make money.
Sure.
So there is some of that we kind of cross over and tie in, but there are some really interesting things going on with more job shadowing, internships. I've seen a resurgence in the past few years of career fairs for students, and I think those are very important. And one of the things I've noticed is I've gotten to attend 2 career fairs this year that were both geared towards 8th grade, one in Oklahoma City Public Schools and one for Norman. And I think that's a really interesting time to start getting students thinking about it, like what is needed for this career? What will put me in position to go in this career? Because there's careers now where students can graduate high school and make a lot more money than I ever have. Sure. With just a high school diploma, if they know how to position themselves and know what to do and take advantage of our career tech systems or other opportunities, and may have better options for them that way. But we've got to do a better job of telling our students what those ideas are. So.
Are there like some, like you said, you've just now started moving around the state and stuff like that. Are there some shining examples who's doing like the financial literacy program like really well?
I think Piedmont this year is, and I'll be interested to see what really happens. Piedmont has changed for a new approach, and this was something, from my understanding, that students ask for. They have a financial literacy 1 that I think freshmen or sophomores take, and then they've split it into a second class that seniors are taking right before they graduate with some more of the deeper level things. Kansas, Oklahoma, which is a tiny school district over on the Oklahoma-Arkansas border. I met their main financial literacy teacher at a training I did back in the fall. They're one of the smaller schools in the state. They have a full year course, one of the only full year courses that I'm aware of in the state doing that. Mustang has a really good ongoing financial literacy program. One of their students, and I did not write down her name, but one of their students recently won a national contest with a scholarship attached to it. Was one of 10 national winners for a fairly good, sizable scholarship from that class. So there's some teachers and students doing some really amazing things. And I think part of my task is to celebrate that, to honor them and recognize what they're doing, and then see how we can replicate that in more areas. So.
Take it to scale. Yeah.
So there's a district out there that's just kind of, maybe meeting the minimum a little bit. They're offering the financial literacy class, and they have that, they know where to get the curriculum. What are some things they could do to maybe enhance that program a little bit, to do a little bit more, let their kids get a little bit more out of it?
One of the things I'm seeing as a national trend, both across the country and Oklahoma, is intentional use of game-based and simulation-based instruction. There's a lot of different types of games and modules, online modules that students can do. In some places, they're using those as kind of everything. Teachers just turn students loose on a laptop or Chromebook and say, hey, log onto the site and go through it, and they don't really supplement that with instruction and other things. I think combining those two things is really kind of taking it to the next level, because one of the things I'm hoping to share and move us towards and help teachers learn how do we do this better is to move from teaching financial knowledge to financial capability. Just because a student may know how to calculate the rule of 72 or what that even is, it's a formula to see how quickly your money invests, depending on your rate of return and everything, that how quickly your money will double when you invest it. A student may know that answer and be able to work out that formula, but that doesn't mean they know how to balance a checkbook. So it's more teaching students those simulations, and that's where a lot of the game-based play comes in, or game-based instruction comes in, is it gives them a chance to try out what they're learning in real time. So if you can match up some type of instruction with a lot of the simulations and online modules, if for schools that have the time to do that, and I know some of our schools are really pushed because our students, if they're an athlete trying to take AP classes and other things, some of our schools, their schedules are so pushed for time that they can't add one more thing in. So schools have to do what they have to meet the requirements. And so I understand that they're having to look at different things on that. But if they do have the option to do a full course and can add a little bit to and kind of take it to the next level, I think that's the one thing I would recommend, is looking at ways for students to model behavior, to practice that, and to move more towards the habits, behaviors, and capabilities more than just head knowledge.
What are some of those? What are some of those online games?
EverFi is one,
Okay.
Which is most of these two have links off of the State Department website.
Okay.
EverFi is one, which I believe is free statewide now. K20 Center has one called the Mind Your Own Budget.
Okay.
It's a very interactive game that takes about, to fully go through the game, takes about a month of time for students logging on to each day. And I believe this one is available. I know this one's available in Oklahoma City and Tulsa area for free, and I think most of the state, but I'm not positive on that. But WeOki and Tulsa Teachers Credit Union both are very generous in providing the foolproof module and curriculum for students or statewide. Junior Achievement has some as well through their financial park. That's both an in-person event, and the students do curriculum before they come, or they moving more towards a virtual stance for it as well. Next Gen Personal Finance has, they don't have a full simulation, but they have different simulation modules on their website that students can do and play. One that I kind of got sucked into right after it came out, and I was playing around with it, they have one called Shady Sam, where you are actually playing the role of a payday loan lender and running your own payday loan shop. And if you try to be nice to people, you get fired pretty quick. But if you basically just keep people on the hook and coming back to make the minimum payment and extending their loan, you get rewards and benefits. Wow. And it actually puts the students in that role to see those things aren't good for you. Like, they're pretty bad. Like, they want to they don't want you to ever pay those off. Right. They want you to keep coming back and taking out more and more. So.
That seems similar, like what you do when people forget their lunch money.
That's pretty accurate. Just charge it. You'll be all right. I'll get paid for this later. Are there a bunch of pitfalls and holes that, you're kind of telling people to be aware of, or that you're kind of pushing whenever you go out there? Like,
I don't know if I would really describe them necessarily as pitfalls. I think more that we have an opportunity to really examine what's happening and see where we can get better and move forwards. There's been some really interesting things happen on a national level since Oklahoma's gotten invested in this. I've recently completed, looking through in preparation for a strategic plan, about 2,000 pages of research, and a lot of that coming from the Treasury Department and a group in Washington, D.C., the Financial Literacy Education Commission, that's really done some deep studies into what needs to happen. And they've worked closely with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and developing some material called Building Blocks for Youth that really looks at what students need at each grade or each age level to really help build towards that financial capability. And it's looking at executive function, financial knowledge, and financial habits. And really, I think those are some interesting things that I can help connect to schools. One thing that it hit me as I was doing some of that research recently is I was reading a report of financial literacy in adults around the world. And it was done by Standard & Poor's, and it was a pretty simple 4-question assessment that they ask in almost every country around the world of a sampling of adults. And as I read through the questions, it hit me, if you don't have basic math skills, you're going to miss 3 of these 4 questions. Mm-hmm. And so I started having a conversation with some others in my office and my bosses and saying, what would it look like if I asked for more help from our directors of math into helping our financial literacy teachers understand how to teach math to high school students. Because a huge part of understanding financial literacy is understanding basic numeracy, basic math, and helping our students see that, because I think that's something that would definitely put Oklahoma apart, and it is not really happening anywhere else in the country. In financial literacy, any teacher can teach. There's not a specific certification requirement. And I was a rare person certified in math and social studies, so I understood it a little bit. But I have really good financial literacy teachers that are teaching from the business background or from English background or social studies. And if I can come alongside them and help them understand some math pedagogy, I think it would really enhance what's happening across our state.
Good point.
So you'd mentioned earlier about possibly, in the next 5 years or so, maybe an update of the curriculum. What are some areas that you'd maybe like to see that get strengthened?
I want to keep what's uniquely Oklahoman in it, in that our 14 competencies are really strong. I think there's some different ways we could possibly think about that going forward. There are some kind of streamlines on some national ideas from the Jumpstart Council, the Council on Economic Education, and then a group from the Financial Literacy Education Commission, a thing they've started called the My Money 5, where there's really 5 or 6 major categories of looking at what comes into a financial literacy program. And I think if we looked at possibly streamlining and redistributing, keeping every single part of the original 14, but putting them in different buckets, I think might tie that in better with students, because we'll start to see charitable giving is really a budgeting item. Online shopping, while that's important and we need to talk about it, that's a part of budgeting. And so I think it will help teachers, because I think a lot of right now, I know I did this when I taught it. I started at Standard 1, taught to Standard 14, finished. I didn't really cross over as much. And so I think that would help us see those connections, that it's really more, it's not just a linear progression, that it's more, I call it kind of more of a spider web, that everything's connected as it is. It's kind of cool. I've got, and behind my desk in my office, I've put a cork board up where I've got all the different standards and substandards, and I've got them like thread running through all of them, so it looks like I'm tracking a serial killer or something behind my desk.
Yeah, those are always impressive. Yeah.
So I think I just wanted that visual.
Sure, absolutely.
My desk, So
some people walk in, they're like,
up in your garage.
I don't know if I want to stay here.
So, but I think that's one area we can look at to kind of help students see that all of this is connected. Because really, I think, to not oversimplify it, but really all of financial literacy is budgeting. All of it comes back to a spending plan and how you're going to stick to that, because all of that is a component of it, but really helping students understand how to earn money, how to spend money, how to borrow, how to invest, save, and then protect against risk, which is really where the insurance and then some of the pitfalls with bankruptcy and gambling and things come in. But I really think that could help us simplify it, help us be able to showcase what is really strong in Oklahoma. We have some teachers producing and doing some really great things, and we could showcase that and have other states coming to see and tap into what we're doing here as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, with regards to resources and stuff like that, like we talked about, like the online stuff that's out there, is there a book? Is there, what's the curriculum look like for financial
There are some of the curriculum companies provide a financial literacy option. I don't know if we have really any schools using any of those options across Oklahoma. There is a free curriculum on the State Department of Education website that teachers can download, and then there's an answer key they have to email me for. I actually do go on, and every time I get a request for the answer key to send out, I will take 15 seconds, go to that school's website, make sure that's a legit teacher.
Sure.
I had one the other night from an iCloud account, kind of a strange name. They just said, hey, I need the answer key to this one section of the deal. And I was like, well, could you email me back from your teacher account? And then never heard anything. I do think I've had 2 or 3 students this year try and contact me for the answer key. And I know my own students back in the day, they would have tried to do that if they would have known it's out there.
I would have tried to do that.
Yeah,
Being resourceful. It's being resourceful. That's
It
right.
is being resourceful. So, but I do try and protect the integrity of that and make sure it's a teacher. So, but that is out there. There are PowerPoint slides. There are teacher and student manuals or PDFs for each lesson on that. There is some curriculum with some of the modules. I think Foolproof has a curriculum kind of that goes with it that I think mostly is online. Next Gen Personal Finance provides free curriculum from their website. Council on Economic Ed has some different curriculums. Jumpstart. The Jumpstart Clearinghouse on their national, which I believe is jumpstart.org, they have a resource clearinghouse where you can go in and search from free up to $1,000 for a lesson and have a sliding scale. So I always put mine down both slides on free. But you can search by topic, grade level. Federal Reserve Education.org has a similar thing where you can search, and they have lessons way beyond just financial literacy and or economics. They have math, they have social studies. They have a very broad curriculum based on their website that you can search similar topic, or grade. Trying to think where else. Several banks provide curriculum. Bank of America. MidFirst Bank over the past few years has helped sponsor a local curriculum development that has been featured in newspapers and education. So I believe there's 3 or 4 different sets of financial literacy or lesson plans on the newspapers and education website. A couple of those I might have written, so maybe steer towards the others.
Sure.
But yeah. So, but
And we'll try to get as many of these as you've mentioned in the show notes.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. So they can just
anybody
click on
listening,
them,
make sure you can click on them and do our best to have those
So
in
the
there. Besides
newspapers and
doing the
education, one of the things I really like about it, they've mostly all been written either by local educators or local MidFirst bank employees. So there's kind of a local flair to it, and it's all being geared towards those 14 standards, and there's some good information on that. I know when I wrote one for them on online shopping and credit cards, I pulled in some resources from other national banks, and they said they had to rebrand that to only showcase MidFirst. And I was like, well, that makes sense. If you're behind this project,
Yeah, we get it, guys. We get
we
it.
shouldn't send somebody to Chase for
Exactly.
your own project right there. Yeah.
We totally get it.
So, yeah.
Todd, is there anything else that we're kind of wrapping up?
Yeah, it's been a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, man, I feel.
I mean, the bucket's got to be close to dry. I mean, he's had all kinds of resources. He's done.
Goodness.
I could
good
go
stuff.
for hours. I told you about that 2,000 pages of research I just
Right.
finished going through. So, yeah, I feel like I'm.
Can I go get some coffee real
Well,
fast
yeah.
when I come back? I mean,
I need
and
I'm getting
Mac,
about
he
4
has
hours
his
of sleep.
cardboard
Yeah.
box out there. He does want to go
Yeah.
over his taxes.
Yeah,
That's
right. Anything if teachers ever need help, I'm uniquely positioned. Again, I don't know if there's anybody in the country that really has the time I have right now to devote towards understanding best practices, trends, where the research is going, where to send for advice. I'm more than happy to help teachers look at what they could do better or what they may not know about that's out there. I know when I personally taught financial literacy, I knew the State Department website. I used the curriculum from the State Department. I was teaching it to freshmen mainly. I tried to make it personal for them, which making a 14-year-old care about insurance and buying a house is tough. But I wish I would have known everything I know now then.
Sure.
And so if teachers are out there and they're struggling to find stuff and feel overwhelmed, let me help.
Yep.
That's kind of what I'm here for, is to serve the teachers and students of Oklahoma and to help them understand what else is out there. So.
Very nice, Todd. Todd, thank you for joining us today. Todd
be
Gragg,
here.
once again,
you, guys.
State Department of Education. He reports to Joy Hoffmeister, so he is
Yes.
not leading the state.
No, I'm not.
But he is.
But he is
directly
a
under-
championship basketball
That's right.
coach.
Well, yeah.
Championship basketball coach. Go Bombers. And good luck with the new baby.
All right, thank you.
Congratulations.
We
Make
hope
sure
that
you-
eventually you get sleep.
Yeah.
I hope so too. I do think that parents kind of block out that first few months and forget what it's like before they have another one.
Yeah.
So.
Gotta start that 529
later
today.
on Facebook, your time hop will remind you of the things that you can't recall
it
right now.
definitely will. It definitely will.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
being
guys.
with us
Glad to
today,
be here.
Thank you, Todd.
Thanks.